necessarily of the crime that we've been convicted of. 2 is that when this person gets out of prison, no matter what their crime, if they robbed somebody, went in for a robbery, then there's a fear that, they're coming back in our neighborhood and they're going to do something bad. So it's a stigma there. Then it's a stigma on the family, because when an individual goes to prison, the entire family goes, because it's a burden put upon the family, having that person that's in prison to support them, the phone calls. I was just listening to Jesse Jackson's mother talk about the book she's written. And it's the stigma, the phone calls, the travel, the money, everything. There's a burden. And when the person comes home, a lot of times people expect so much from that individual, but they have to understand that he's been under a lot of trauma. Going to prison, going to visit someone in prison, that is traumatizing. Just sitting in the visitation room, hearing all that noise, it does something to you. You have to prepare yourself to go into the prison for the visit, and then you have to prepare yourself to leave. So it's a lot that people really don't understand. They think, well, yeah, he's in prison, she's in prison, they did something wrong, and that's where they belong. That's not the case. Then people want to, when you get out, then the PO, the probation officers, everybody wants you to get a job, get a job, get a job. How are you going to get a job when you have a record? Nobody wants to hire you. Then there's all the fines that the person has stacked up against them. So it's a lot of pressure put on that individual when they come home from prison.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a whole lot of pressure put on them. And then it probably doesn't add to it that there are also stereotypes. Like you said, there are stereotypes about the fact that they just came out of prison, so they must have been guilty, so they must have been going to be committing crimes again in those neighborhoods. And a lot of times, like you said, they're trying to live a clean life and trying to live a better life. And then I'm sure that shows that have been on, like the ones that are coming out of HBO and some of the other ones that kind of glamorize the prison life, don't necessarily help with that kind of image, because I know that there's some shows that are out there that sometimes seem to glamorize that life, even though we know for a fact that it's a hard life. And then I was also wondering if you could comment on the whole thing about voting as well, because I know a lot of times, even though sometimes the prisoners don't know, but I think in certain states, I think North Carolina might be one of them, you actually do have the right to vote once you come out of prison. But a lot of times folks are thinking, I got this record, kind of like I'm going to have a hard time getting a job. If I want to vote for a candidate, I'm not going to be able to do that either. But I understand that that's not the case in all states. It is the case in maybe a few states, but not all states.
You are correct.
Very
New Jersey,
true.
And New Jersey is also one of those states.
It's an interesting question, because how did you lose your right to vote? That's a very interesting question. How did you lose your right? You served your time. So in my mind, everything should be given back to you because you served your time. But
and that's
not
true. I think a lot of people reference the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which was never changed, and it says slavery was abolished except for individuals who were convicted of felony offenses. So that's kind of how they're able to give them, these jobs within the system, but they don't pay them. They pay them per day. It's like $1 up to $3 per day. And then they can't file taxes on it. They can't claim any exemptions or anything like that. So when they come home, it never addressed anything upon an individual's release. So that's a big gray area that's still just kind of sitting out there.
That is exactly true. It's just you're penalized again. You served your time. Now you're penalized again. Sometimes you're forced back into your old habits because you have to survive. You have fines. There's drug tax. If you were incarcerated for drugs, now there's drug tax, and that drug tax sometimes could be like $1 million. So how are you going to pay that? How are you going to pay back child support? How are you going to pay all these traffic fines to get your license back so you can? And especially in North Carolina where the transit system is not the greatest. So how are you going to get to a job if you can't get your license to drive, to get to a job that's going to pay you enough money to pay your fines, take care of yourself, take care of your family? I mean, the odds are so stacked so high. So you're forced oftentimes to do what you did to get yourself locked up in the first place.
Right. I was just wondering, Bessie, when you talk to your son and everything, one of the other things we hear about in the prison system and everything is about the various kinds of things that happen within prison, with it being very much of a segregated kind of community. You know, you've got the African American community, you've got the folks that are the bikers, you've got the folks that are the Hispanic communities and different other communities. So I was just wondering, he was in that system for so long, how was he able to cope with that, or how was he able to tell you that he was able to cope with that? So I'm sure he probably had to tell you some of these stories about how he was able to cope with that. And then the other thing that I know a lot of people do when they're in the penal system is they use that as a time to almost re-educate themselves. You hear the stories like Malcolm X, who was in prison when he started developing kind of his philosophy of life that became kind of what led him to be who we know him as, which is Malcolm X. I believe at the time he was in prison, he was actually Malcolm X.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. Several things happened to me to be able to give to my son. One was I told him, okay, you're in an incubator now. You're going to have the opportunity to learn everything. And I had the greatest opportunity to meet Reuben Hurricane Carter and have a conversation with him. And he was able to give me a lot of information that I passed on to my son. So my son, of course, reading Malcolm X, redid himself. He educated himself. And then he started to give back to some of the other guys that in every prison that he went to, he shared some of the same information, some of the books, some of the just about everything that I sent him, because I wrote him every day. He received mail from me every day because it was important for every prison he went to for those people to know that there was somebody on the outside that cared about him. And if something went wrong, I would call Raleigh in a heartbeat because they had something that belonged to me. And I was going to make sure that my son was okay while he was in prison. So educating himself, he learned how to speak Spanish. He learned sign language. He just redid himself.
And I imagine that's something that a lot of folks in the prison system are probably really concerned about. You always hear about the folks that go to prison, and for whatever reasons, and I know that people have different things going on in their lives. Sometimes it's relationships that have gone south. Sometimes it's just a matter of people trying to survive on their own, because we all have our own daily struggles and everything. But that is something that I've heard from other people who have gone through the penal system, is that you were very forceful in the way that you did it. You made sure that, like you said, that the penal system knew that you were there. Your daughter did the same, your sister. And I'm sure there were other family members, but we oftentimes hear about folks in the prison system that they seem to be there almost like island onto themselves, because they've lost touch with a lot of the people that were in their inner circle, including sometimes family members.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, when you run across those people in the transition house, what kind of advice do you give them? Because I know that can be an issue where folks have basically had their families, sometimes they're written off because they believe what the court has said about that person. And sometimes it may be true, like we said, or it may not be true. But I'm just wondering, what kind of advice do you give to folks when you see them in those kind of places?
Well, one of the things that I do with when the guys come to our transitional house is address them by their last name, Mr. So-and-so, because that's important for them to feel that they are a person, because oftentimes when they were incarcerated, they were not addressed by their first name, not Mr. So-and-so. Maybe they would call, hey, Jones, or by their number. And then to let them feel important. That is the most important thing, to let a person feel important, to let them know you are important. And then allow them to have some respect for themselves. We respect you, now you will respect us. And give them some dignity to help them feel good about themselves. And once you can start changing that mindset of that person, then you can open up all possibilities. Now, it doesn't work with everybody. Sometimes people come to our house and they don't make it through because it is not a rooming house. It's a transitional house. And there are certain things that are required and certain things that are expected. And we have house meetings. Talk about what you don't like here, and we'll see if we can work on it. It's so important to let them feel like you are a man, and we're going to respect you, and you're going to respect us back. And if you've lost touch with your family, maybe you can get back in touch with them. If not, then you got to bring some closure to that and find new families. So those are just some of the things that we do at our house.
Yeah, it sounds like really powerful stuff that y'all are doing in that house, and definitely giving new opportunities for other folks. Now, one of the other things that we oftentimes hear about when we talk about folks that are in the penal system or that have gone through the penal system is this whole notion of rehabilitation, and that part of what the prison system is supposed to be doing is rehabilitating the individual. But from what I've seen, I mean, yeah, they may learn a trade, they may not learn a trade, but it doesn't seem like it's as effective as being that kind of tool at all. So it seems to me that from what I'm hearing, and I've heard this from people that have been involved in even kind of movements to either change or ban the prison system. And I just wondered what your assessment was as to whether there's even an effort to really do true job training in the prison system or true quote-unquote rehabilitation, or even deal with people that may have psychological issues. Because like I said, not saying all do, because there are some that are perfectly sane, but there are some that have had to deal with some psychological issues as well. So I was just wondering, how do you feel as one that is an advocate the prison system is doing in terms of addressing these needs and concerns?
Oh, wow. You really want me to answer that question, huh?
Yes, I do.
Well, of course, the prisons aren't designed to rehabilitate. So I'll put it that way. Some of the classes that they offer are good. The guys get a certificate. But that's just a piece of paper, because that does not mean that a company is going to hire them because they've earned that certificate when they were in prison. So the training that some of the guys get could be good, welding and different things like that, but it's not effective. It's not you can come out with 10, 20 certificates. Does not mean that you're going to be able to get a job. When people come home, we have to look at what skills do you have and how we can build on them so you will be able to get a job. We have to look at what skills they have, what would you like to do, and try to build on that. So when you talk about prison rehabilitation, prisons are designed to make money off of the people that are in prison, not to keep people from coming out. Now, they do have some reentry prisons here in North Carolina. I think right now it's 10. And those reentry prisons are doing the best that they can because different community colleges are going in and helping guys with their resumes, doing things like that. But it's a slow turn, a very slow turn.
Can I interject for 1 second?
Sure.
Also, well, I'm in the state system. All prisons, unfortunately, the media at times too will say, privatization is not. I can speak for New Jersey. It's not that many private prisons here. The prisons are state-run, but there's also a belief that if an individual has committed a crime and they go to prison, that the prison is going to change them. The rehabilitation starts with the offender, not the system. So now it was a big argument. What is the Department of Corrections doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? Now there are programs in place, educational programs, vocational programs, and also other therapeutic programs that individuals take. We have one prison